fellow travelers, and welcome to the Unbroken Ground. My name is Paul. Thank you for joining me again. This is episode 39, in the best way. That's going to be the title for the episode. I think I'm going to continue talking about leadership a little bit this week. I don't know. I am putting together an idea that I think that I will have request for topics for some future podcasts, because at episode 39, that means that I am just 13 away from having 52 episodes, which is the number of episodes I agreed to do with myself. And so that's the challenge. And so that's what I've been doing. So I might put in some audience participation, opportunities out there to, if you have a topic that you want to hear me talk about, research or think through, then I might have that open for anybody who listens on those that are on the Facebook group, all my friends. So keep an eye open for that if you would like to suggest a topic. As always, you can join us in the conversation or start a conversation at the Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/The Unbroken Ground. You can email me at theunbrokenground@gmail.com, or you can find me on Instagram at The Unbroken Ground. This week, talking about authority and leadership and how those work together, or do they? Let's jump in. So continue on thinking just about leadership. And one of the things that has really struck me as I've thought through, just thinking through the implications of what it means to be a leader, and like our expectations that we have when we think about who a leader is. One of the topics, or one of the thoughts that I continuously come back to, especially over the past couple of weeks, has been the idea of authority. And I think that first off, we should be very clear in explaining that leadership is not the same as authority, that people can have authority without being leaders. You can be given, and I think I referenced this a little bit in some of the other thoughts as we thought through leadership earlier, the last couple of episodes. You can be given a position that has authority, but it doesn't necessarily make you a leader. It doesn't necessarily make you a good leader, I guess I should say. It makes you a leader in the sense that if you've been given authority over people, then people do have to follow you because of some consequences. So, for example, if you are the teacher of a class, you are given authority over the students, and if they don't follow that authority, then there are punishments. There's disciplines that you can enact due to their lack of following your authority. But again, that doesn't make you a leader just because you have authority. The same thing with being being a police officer. You have authority because of the position that you've been given, but it doesn't make you a leader. The fact that you have authority doesn't make you a leader. But I think so many times people confuse the two. They want to be seen as leaders because they want to have authority. And I think that some of that is just from the fact that people want to there's that kind of esteem, prestige, that validation, that if people trust you enough to put you in a place of authority, that they are validating, that they are confirming that they believe in you, and that they think you should have that position, and that people should follow you. That's a thing that a lot of people seek after. A lot of people want authority because authority is connected with power, and so there is even a subset of people that have lacked power, and so they want that authority because it is, in essence, power. They want power. They want to be able to have the ability to make decisions and to tell people what they should do and not be questioned by that because they are the authority. And I think that, again, all of that is true. You can have people who are seeking authority because they want power. You can have people who are seeking authority. Sometimes it's not necessarily even because that's kind of an intense personal lust or desire for power of like, oh, I've been powerless, so I want some power, or I want power because I don't like it when I don't have control, when I don't have power. That can be a very negative thing for people, because they can be that they are using that as a way to control other people or to get the things they want, or just really to deal with life in an unhealthy way. And so, but then I think there's also some people who want to be. They feel like they are gifted and they have a certain set of skills or a set of knowledge, or have obtained an amount of knowledge that helps them, that they want to be in places of authority because they want to be helpful. And so they're like, oh, I can help people. And they've experienced people who have been in authority over them and have not been so helpful, or they've experienced people who have. It's been a positive experience, and they want to carry that out. And so a lot of times the idea of leadership or being a leader is tied into this idea of authority. And it's a very worldly way to look at leadership, is that, oh, I have authority. The buck stops with me. The responsibility is with me. And so there can be there can be people that desire that just for the case of they want to have that. They want to have the authority. Whether or not they are a leader or not, though, really depends upon their heart and how they lead. Because the thing about authority is that it does not, to a point people will follow, but it is not something that is influential, or as powerful as, for example, Jesus' example of love, of a servant leadership, which kind of bases its power in not authority, but in willingness to sacrifice and care, to be a good shepherd. And when you know that your leader cares about you and is seeking your good and has good things for you, and is not just seeking a name for themselves, then you tend to be able to, more people want to follow that. Whereas authority, often worldly authority, is about lording it over people, holding yourself up as an expert and making people follow you. And so there is a limited amount of authority that you can use, that people will agree to follow depending on your circumstances. So, for example, if you have authority, but you don't have any relational skill or influence, then your authority eventually runs out. So we see this, I think, one of the examples I see this is in summer camp. When I was a summer camp director, and we had hired people to go in and be summer staff, and one of the things that they did is they had a group of kids, and they were the authority for the group of kids until they weren't. So for whatever reason, they lost control of the group. They lost that leadership. It's similar to in the idea of like a classroom. Like you are the teacher is the authority until they're not. And so if the teacher's authority fails or doesn't work, then a lot of times it's like, well, then I'm going to go get the principal or the superintendent. You know, we're going to go up. We're going to escalate the situation. In essence, the same thing happens at camp, where the camp staff's like, well, we have to get the program director involved. They're the ones. And once that happens, then the offending person, the child, the teenager, has learned who has the real authority. And in some sense, it's them, because the staff member just didn't know how to control them, or they couldn't. I mean, you know, let's say that let's be fair to say that there's some situations where it's just inevitable that it's going to be escalated, and that a camp director or a staff person above with higher authority is going to have to step in. But therein is we see the problem, is that your authority only exists, is only extended as much as by the power of your will, by the power of your expertise, or the power of just your presence, your personality, authority really relies upon those, because once those supporting things in authority fail, then you lose it. And I think that it is, and I think that's a very big struggle for people who are in leadership. And I think it comes back from, just if we think about it, because it's the way the world thinks about being leaders. It reminds me of the story in the Bible where the mother comes and says, Jesus, let my son sit at your right and left hand. Let them have authority. And of course, this just really makes all the other disciples mad, right? Because they want to be the ones with authority. Because again, these are some oppressed people. These are some people who have been oppressed by the Roman Empire, that they have been abused and disassociated and had their lives just ruled by the religious fanatics, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who had told them that they're not worthy to be students of the rabbis. They controlled the communities, and so they were in a lot of ways very powerless. They had power taken away from them, and so in a very human way, the disciples are beginning to think about this. When Jesus is talking about his kingdom coming into power, they're thinking about, okay, well, who gets to rule? Who gets to be in charge? Who gets the authority? Who gets to sit at the right hand of the king? I mean, they know they're not going to be a king because king is Jesus, and they know they're not going to be the king, but who gets to be his right-hand man and his left-hand man? Who gets to be second in command? Who gets to have authority up to the point that to Jesus? And Jesus makes the point of saying that's not how the kingdom of God works. That's not how God is going to influence people. And it's not going to be an outward pressure of authority that changes people. It's going to be a new heart. And the pressure is going to come not from an authority figure that's standing on the outside saying, thou shalt not, or you do this, or you go to hell kind of language, but instead it's from the inside of this heart that says, do you want to have life? Are you tired? Are you weary? Come and take upon my yoke. Come follow me, and I will change you from the inside out. And for Jesus, his leadership, the reason that we follow him, or because we can follow him, is because he loved us so much that he would give his life up for us. And that is the kind of leadership that people will follow. There are leaders in my life that I will honestly tell people that if you want me to follow them, I will run into a brick wall for them. We'll take on the gates of hell with water guns if they're leading, because they have cared for me, because they have directed me, because they have led me in such a way that I'm committed. I'm in, and whatever they want to do, let's go. I'm there. And it's not because they had authority that was given to them because of their position, although that was there, but it was because they led with integrity, and they cared, and they showed that. They listened, and so it wasn't because they had the power, although they did. That a lot of that authority still rested and was vested in them. That was not the reason. And so I think it's important to remember that as a leader, authority is a tool that you can use, but it's not the same as leadership. It's not the same, and having power is not directly even connected with being a leader, because there are leaders who don't have power per se, authority per se. They have power, but they don't have authority given to them by a title or by a governance or anything like that. But they're still influential, and they have a power to change people's hearts, to lead people, to guide and direct people. That there is a power, and people will follow them. They will surrender their lives to them, not because they've been told, well, if you don't, then there's going to be consequences, but because they see who that leader is, and they are inspired to follow. And to me, that's the highest level of leadership, is to realize that you can use authority, But you have to realize that the more you simply use your authority as a bludgeoning tool to make people do what you want them to do, the less ineffective that becomes. The more you have to do that, the less ineffective that that is not an effective tool to always use, because power, especially in most situations, in the ones that we deal with, there's some dictatorial kind of senses where power is ultimate, and it's like, yeah. But even then, like, if you think about that, like, there are people in Russia and in China who live under these regimes that have total power, and yet they still rebel. And that's what authority, when authority is overextended and used more than any other type of leadership, when it's used by leaders and without any other things to undergird that, to support that, then it leads to rebellion. The more you tell people to do stuff just because you tell them to do that, like I told you to, the less they will. The more resistant they'll be to that. The more resistant. And so you'll have to use more authority. You'll have to have some kind of larger punishment or some grander scheme of how to make people do what you want them to do. And that's why you see in places that have dictators that they will result eventually to the ultimate, which is that we'll kill you. That's our authority. We will end your life. We'll kill your friends and family. You will do what we say, or we will kill you. Because their authority, because it is only, their leadership is only based on this authority, and by holding it and by establishing it and holding it through powerful things, like just holding on to it through violence, it eventually doesn't have the effect. It doesn't have the effect. And so we just have to be, I think we can take from that as a lesson. I think that we can take from that. We have to be very careful as leaders to not resort or rely on that idea of authority as our main way that we lead people. And because when we do that, we are leading in a way that's going to continue to become less. It's going to be less effective rather than more effective. And so we have to be careful. We have to be careful how when we think about how we're leading, and when we think about who is following, that we haven't resorted to that, drawn to the bucket too many times. I love so John Maxwell was a big leadership guy back when I was in my 20s. So coming out of college, and I guess he still is a big leadership guy, although a little bit dated now. People like to read other things like by Simon Sinek, and so they have other leadership gurus now. But John Maxwell was kind of the guy in Christian leadership when I was coming out, and I think he said, and one of the things that struck with me and stuck with me was this idea that as leaders you kind of had a currency, and this is where I see like authority. You kind of have a currency, and you got a bank. So you got a bank account of leadership. You got a bank account of authority, and when you use it, it's gone. You can't really fill that back up. And so eventually when you use it all the way out, you lose it. And so that influence that you had because you had this position of authority, suddenly it's gone. And then what do you do? Well, if you don't have any other kind of relational influence or any other levers of influence, then you cease to lead. You cease to lead. People may keep you in the position of authority that you seem to have, but they don't listen to you anymore, and you no longer can influence people. And so you have to be very careful about how you lead and how you lead the most reluctant people, because I think that is where we are most tempted to simply use our authority is to make the reluctant people do what we want them to do, or the people we don't like, or the people that we just don't relate well to. When it seems like none of our other ways of leading work, we resort to kind of bringing out the last trick, which is just authority. You'll do it because I told you to. You'll do it because I said so. You'll do it because God has said so. I mean, and that's a scary thing. That's a scary thing to assume that you can lead people because God has told you. Is something that you should hold very both gently and sacredly. That to refuse to allow that to be a position of how you bludgeon people into doing what you want them to do. That is a very scary place. If you begin to say that I'm going to be a leader and you should do these things because God has spoken to me and to me only. God has spoken, and so you will do what I say. You will not question. Those type of things. That's where authority, basically the dark side of authority lives. It is with leadership. There is going to be a certain amount of authority. Even if it is not official or expressed authority, or even if it's not organizational authority, as a leader, you're going to have some kind of authority. You're also going to have influence. And I think people should be very careful in wanting authority without understanding how they can influence people. Because if you want a job or you want a position, or you want a title just so you can tell people what to do, then that you're not a leader, and that's not what leaders do. You will. It will work for a little bit because you have there is an amount that authority works, But at some places when you are just living out your authority and it's organizational authority and it has nothing else, that's all it is, you're in that position. One of the places that it's hard to really recover from is when you make major mistakes. And we talked about that last week of how do you recover the trust. But when you are living out authority and people start to see you as someone who makes mistakes or is constantly wrong, or then you start to lose influence in that, because you are, if all you're doing is your positional authority as the person who's, I should be in charge, and then people like, okay, you should be in charge. Why are you making these mistakes? Why are you not doing things? Why are we going in the wrong direction? Yeah, people are going to stop following you. So there is a limit. There's an expiration date on that kind of authority if you don't have any other kind of levers of influence. And so as a leader, you have to be self-aware and learn how you lead people. And if all you have is a title, or if all you have is organizational authority, just know that your time will come where you will no longer lead. Because people will just simply, they may assent to you, to your face. They may say yes to your face, but they will simply live however they want to do. And then if they don't follow you, guess what? Yes, you have to then find either a suitable punishment, a suitable negative downside to them not following you, or somebody higher up. And then there you go. You've lost your influence because someone else is actually the authority, and that's all you were living on. And so we have to be very careful. We can use authority. Authority can be something that we can use, and it can be one of the tools that we use. But when it's the only tool and when it's used to bludgeon people over the head, we will lose it. As a leader, you will lose it. You can't consistently keep that. Because even, like I said, even in countries where you have dictators who have ultimate unchecked authority, people still rebel. People still fight back. People still go on to revolutions. People still overthrow, have coup attempts and try to overthrow, because that they don't see you as a leader. They don't see you as influential. And so you have to realize that unless you are going to be okay with being a dictator and only having a ruling with a fist and getting rid of the people who disagree with you and who won't follow you, so you're just constantly having new people come in, or you're just constantly being basically to your face lied to about agreements, and then people going and just doing whatever they want, you have to figure out how to be an influence without just authority. You can use authority, but when we overuse it, when we only rely on that, that's when it becomes, I think, weak. And that's why I think Jesus didn't come to set up a kingdom on earth in the sense that his disciples and that the Israelites really wanted. They really wanted Jesus to come to set up this earthly kingdom. He was gonna kick the Romans out. He was going to recreate Israel. He was going to be the physical king, the earthly king that they wanted. And so when Jesus came and started talking about this idea of establishing a kingdom, the Jews were very excited because they wanted that. They were ready. They were ready to establish this physical kingdom. They were going to kick the Romans out. They were going to fight the battle. But Jesus began to talk about this idea of there's a kingdom that lives in our hearts. There's a spiritual kingdom, and the kingdom is here and it's now, and he rules that. But it's not going to be a government of that we think of, it's not the UN, it's not the United States government, it's just not. And Jesus avoided that. There was a time in the Gospels where the Jews were like, this guy needs to be king, let's make him king. And it says that he knew their hearts and he slipped away, because he was going to have no part of that. He was going to have no part of that. And we see that the way he led was with love, and there was no love greater than that he would die for our sins, that he would lead his life led him to the cross. His leadership was to the cross, and he died for us because he loved us. And there is no greater motivator. There's no greater motivator than love. And it's hard to take that sometimes into a business world, because it's like, well, it's weird to love your coworkers, or it's weird to love, Joe in accounting. But the principles are there. Like, if you're a leader and you are concerned about what you do and how your actions bring suffering or relief to the people underneath that are following you, if you truly care about that, if that's kind of what motivates you, you want to see success, but you want to care for the people too, then people are going to want to follow you. If you show that your heart is to do what's best for the company and for the people in the company, people will want to follow you. They'll want to be a part of that. But that takes time, and that takes energy, and that takes effort. And it takes some humility, and it takes some just that admitting that we can't do it all. And it takes some dependence. We depend upon one another. Even as leaders, we depend upon those that follow us. And so as a good leader, as a good shepherd, we have to take care of the flock. Because if you are disregarding the health, the mental health, the social, the spiritual health, the physical health of the people that work for you, you will lose those people. As a shepherd, if you don't take care of your sheep, they will go away. They will be picked off by predators. They will die because they just didn't have good leadership. And so if you're not aware of who your followers are and the health that they have, then you're missing an opportunity as a leader. How do you help them be better? how do you help them be better? And then maybe, if you're on several leaders up, how do you help your leaders be better so that the leaders that they're leading are better? And then how do you communicate that as an organization wide? And again, it's hard because as leaders, a lot of times we're the first ones through the ideas. And so we see the things, you can see the overview. We see the things, we know why decisions are made. We know the communication, we know the discussions, we know what people are going back and forth. But a lot of times the people at the lowest level, all they see is the decision. And they stack it up against their life to say, is this good for me or is this bad for me? And so as a leader, the challenge is to see. It's to see the health, wealth, spiritualness, mental, all of that of the people that are underneath, that are following you. Because people want to follow good leaders. They do. They're drawn to that. That's how we're made. But the question remains, are you a good leader? Or do you just have authority? So that's what to think about this week. That's what I'm thinking about. So if you have thoughts, comments, as always, please reach out. Pray that God will. I hope you serve under a good leader whatever you do, wherever you work. And if you're a leader, I hope that challenges you to think about how you lead and how you can be a better leader. God bless. Hopefully, we'll see you. At least you'll hear me. Join me next week. Hope you have a good week.